So you all probably know about application programming interface, but do you really understand an API? So for that, we should try to relate it with our real life. So for example, a switch. So when we switch on, when we connect it with a bulb and we click it on, so it lights the bulb and we use it that way. So we don't really care what is going inside, like how it is functioning. So similarly, when we are creating any software component, we should not just think like it is a bundle of classes and packages and combine it into a just zip it into a jar file, and that is a software. We should think like how the user will use it. We should also think like when it is not expected to be used in a way, and in that way it is used, how it will behave. So in other ways, I am saying that we should think, we should specify and specification. We should create a specification which has all the details of that software. So for example, we have, when we buy any appliance, and we get a user manual with it. Similarly, when another application programmer is using your API, they will they should not really care about what is going inside. They should only care about the public classes and fields, or those APIs. So that is an API basically. So in our Java world, so we know that a collection of classes by a provider for a particular purpose is called a library, and the Java doc describes its API. So API is nothing but the public classes and fields, methods and those things. So similarly, for JRE, we have a huge number of classes and packages. In that, the public classes and interfaces are the Java API, and others are the part of the Java library. So coming to Java API, we know that Java API helps an application programmer to create an application, and like the basic functionalities like data manipulation, formatting, dates and networking, those things are part of the Java API, so that an application program need not create an application, and for simple functions and utilities they need not code from the scratch. So that is why a Java API is really very useful. So now we will come to types, classes, and enums and interfaces. So for type is nothing but a name given to a behavior. Name given to a behavior. So for example, a bank account is a type, and so in that way, class, enums and interface help you define certain kinds of behavior. So that is also types of types. And coming to class, yeah. So class combine a description of a behavior with the implementation that is used to realize this behavior. So the implementation includes logic and data. So for example, bank account has the logic of depositing and withdrawing money, and data is the bank balance that is increases or decreases. So enum, coming to enum, enum also combine description of a behavior, and in addition to implementation used to realize this behavior, and it has fixed number of instances of this type. Unlike class, which has any number, which can have any number of instances of its type. So why was enum created in that way, that we are restricting from creating any new instances of this type? Why such a thing was done? So it was because in certain cases we need enum, like months of a year. So there are only 12 months in a year, so from January to December. So in that case we only need a fixed number of instances. We should never have any number of instances of that month class or a month type. Now coming to interface. So interface is behavior without any implementation for it. So it cannot have an instance of we cannot have an instance of an interface. So for example, movable is like an interface, because anything like a cat moves, a car moves, and also a stock price moves. So we always need a class to implement the logic of interface. So why is it that interface cannot have an instance of itself? That is because interface is a description of the way you can interact with something, and is not the description of the thing itself. Yeah, so that is why it is always abstract and cannot exist on its own. So other than the above three types of like class, enum, and interface, there is another type called abstract class, and it is somewhere in between class and interface. So it can have behavior, it also has behavior and implementation, but the implementation is not complete enough to create instances of it. So this also cannot exist on its own. So this is needed for certain types like animal can exist like if it is either a cat or a dog or a tiger. So animal cannot exist on its own. Similarly, it will either be a cat, dog, or tiger, or other types of animals. Yeah, so that is the example for abstract class. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you.